Okay, just starting to think about these foot pegs and levers and stuff like that then for the bike. And there are things to consider here. First thing is, I don't want them to look too homemade, if you know what I mean. I'm sure you do. The other thing is, I want them to be different. I don't want to be something. I was thinking about just going to buying a set off of eBay and modifying them to fit. But two reasons not to do that. One, I'm going through a financial crisis, so I can't afford to buy anything off of eBay at the minute. And the other thing is, I want them to be a little bit different. And so I'm going to make them myself. Have a go at making them myself. I've amassed all of these different parts. So sitting down here, hopefully, is everything that we need. And I've decided I'm gonna make them I'm gonna try making them a bit oversized, so they look a little bit too large. We've got a seriously oversized pair of front legs on the bike, and they look okay. So I'm thinking about making the foot pegs a little bit large as well, as in large diameter, larger than normal. Okay, I always have a problem when I'm turning down aluminium because it's so soft. I always end up marking it with the jaws. So I've tried this, and if it works, I'm going to patent the idea. It's an old Foster's can that I've cut round and just put in there. The added bonus is it smells of lager as well while you're doing it. Now I've got to run the actual, this is the brake side, so the brake lever has got to run on this as well. Now this is very soft, this aluminium. So I went to see my dad, and I've got anything that looked like it was a bit harder metal. And he gave me this and he said, well, it might do. Well, literally his exact words were, well, you can try making it out of that if you want. If it wears out, you'll just have to make another one. Okay, so the basic foot peg shape is done. We're going to go for this. It's way too long. We're gonna chop it down to size at some point or other. The Foster's can worked absolutely brilliantly. So that's it. Anybody wants to use that idea in the future, you owe me 50p. Okay, look at that. We now have a bush on the end of our foot peg. Okay, so we have made the start of the foot peg. So this is a bit of steel that's going to run around on the bush. Continuing on with this foot peg, there's my little bit that's going to run on the bearing, about 14mm wide. I'm going to make, now don't judge this until you've actually seen the finished product. Okay, if I show you the finished product, it obviously worked okay for me. If you don't see it, then it's only me that's got to live with this for the rest of my life. 4mm plate, that's what I'm going to make it out of. Okay, so I've cut down 2 strips. I've got a flat edge from the flat edge of metal. My cut's rough as anything, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to clean it up afterwards. So you get the idea, I think. What I'm going to try and get out of this is, I want this to follow the perfect line around the circle and come back down again to our bolt size, which is here. Okay, so I welded it together and started grinding it back down again to try and smooth it all out a bit, just with the paddle wheel on the grinder. I'll finish it off by hand file in a minute, but if you look now, then that's the bottom. Not worried about the bottom. That's the top. Not worried about the bottom at the moment for what will become obvious later on, but the top and round the end here has to be perfect. And you see those holes where there are holes there. What I've got to do is fill all of that back up with weld and then grind it down again so it all looks nice and smooth. I say so. Carried on with it, and it's much better now. The top's pretty good. Needs a tiny little bit more hand fight. This is just with the grinder, so I'll just draw file all of that, and round here as well. So, but you see all of the holes have gone, which is what I wanted to do. Okay, so this is with it bolted on, and so this is what they're going to look like. I reckon it will probably sit about there, but we'll make it adjustable so we can move it wherever we want to. They look quite short. I'm hoping they're not. It's not too short. I think you get an optical illusion because this is so long. I haven't cut this down to to size yet, and so it gives you. It makes me think that this is too short, and I don't think it is. I think it just looks a bit out of proportion with this. But we'll see. Okay, so there is that's what the lever's going to look like. Hopefully it'll look alright. It looks pretty good to me. I quite like it. It's changed, you know, it's the same as anything. When you start to, well, you know, you've noticed it on this bike. It's a million miles away from how it first was meant to be. I might build another bike after I finish this one. You know, I might build another one with all of my original designs on it. But I think that I'm improving on what my original idea would be. I won't build another bike. It's just you. It's just you, my beautiful. Okay. So just starting on this rear linkage bit, trying to find some bits of metal to do the job, and I've come across this huge bolt, which is the remnants of the rear suspension. So this will be perfect, I think, for starting the basis of the linkage. So I just got to cut the head down and down this tube down so it's the right sort of size. Okay, so just on this linkage, I've turned that bolt, so that's what's left of the bolt that was. I've turned it down to the shape I want, and I've cut a thread inside it. So this has now become a nut. So this will, where the Allen key bolt was meant to go head in, you know, this will go in there instead. Which does mean what I'm going to have to do is bolt in from this side. So I'll bolt through the foot peg to clamp down onto this. Now there's not a lot of room here because of the swinging arm. So this is all pretty tight down here now, so I've got to figure out a way, because this will be a nut. If I'm tightening this up with an Allen key over here, I've got to find some way of stopping this from spinning. I think I might put a couple of flats down inside there. That will be the way to go, wouldn't it? I think that would work. Okay, so we've made our bush, and that's that. So this has got to slide down into there. So we're going to heat it up. I'm not going to heat it up as much as I did the last one, because I dinked the last one with the pliers because I got it so hot. I don't think there was any need. Okay. So we'll let that cool down, and that should be on there nice and tight. Okay, so made the inner part of the thing, and I've put a couple of flats on this as well. So the way that this works, this will go into there, bolt on this way. This, you can see there's a lot of sideways movement, but I need that because I need a space down. Remember, this is a nut, so I've got a nice set of skinny snap-on spanners here, and so I'll be able to hold this to loosen it and tighten it up. Okay, job done. So on with the linkage. You can see how serious it is. Glasses have come out. So link rod. Problems associated with having a fixed link rod attached to the back wheel. This can only go in one place, because bear in mind this end of it is going to be directly somehow or other through a bit of linkage connected to the brake pedal. So if there's any movement in this, the brake pedal is going to move. And just to give you an idea, if you put it too high, so if I put it there, when I lift the rear wheel through its travel, you can see there's a lot of movement forwards, backwards, which would transpose to the pedal movement as well. So it has to go in the right place. And a piece of advice here: don't hacksaw off loads of bits of your bike until you've taken some proper measurements. As it happens, I'm lucky enough to know someone with one of these that is standard, you know, it's still together, so I was able to take some measurements from it. So we need to put a pivot in the original place. It'll be the easiest thing to do anyway, for sure, of the old one. And it happens to be around about down there somewhere. So I'm just going to measure up the exact position, because I've taken some measurements, like I say, off the other bike, and find out where my centre point is for the pivot. Then I'm going to make a pivot and fix it to the bike, or rather something to bolt a bit of linkage to. Okay, so that's the plan. Okay, so we've made up all of these bits on the lathe, and these are all of the bits we need for the linkage side of it, without counting the linkage itself. So these are what the linkage is going to run on. We've also made this little bit and just tacked it onto the frame for the time being. So this is where our pivot's going to be. So bits that we've got are this and this. Well, oh, sorry, don't forget that bit too. Go down on the bottom one. When that's all clamped and bolted up, that bit there will turn. That's one of the leaders is going to go. And this bit here bolts up behind here, and that's the bit that turns. Okay, so now all we've got to do is make the levers, or make the linkage that's going to transfer from there down to there. Okay, I'm just going to make that out a bit of a 4mm plate, so I'll just cut it up with a hacksaw in the first instance, so I get it around about right. Okay, so all I'm doing then, I'm just cutting the levers out of 4mm plate, and I'm welding them onto my sort of pivots, and then I'm just grinding them back so they look a bit neater. Okay, so got the pivot in the right place and just tacked it on. Looks a bit messy in a minute. I'm going to get this bit welded nicely around here, but I've just made the first of the link rods here. So now then, if you watch that link rod, I'm going to lift the wheel through the suspension travel. There's no movement on it, which is great, because that's what we need. So when the wheel's bouncing up and down, if the wheel does bounce up and down, we don't want the brake lever going up and down as well. So that's in the first, that's perfect. Now this is tight around here, there's hardly any room at all. But we made up the other bracket earlier on, didn't we? Or rather the other part of this, the back end of this. You see, the other thing you have to consider when you're doing something like this is hardly any room around here, as you can see. You're going to have to be able to take it all apart because this, I can't take the swinging arm out when this is fitted, which means I have to be able to take this off before I can take the swinging arm out of it. So if you think about it, if you look at this, that will come, hold on, it will come out and out and in. So it couldn't be any bigger than it is, and it's tight around here as well. This is so close to the bottom end of it, but there's clearance, this is all we need. We only need a little bit of clearance. Okay, so that's it. So now all we've got to do then, so our link rod down here, which is my brake pull one, I've now got to join that link rod up to this spinny bit at the back here. Okay, so we've got the first part of the linkage sorted out. So this arm here is pivoted on the back. So when we turn this arm, it now turns our, or pulls our brake, which is great. When I lift, if I lift, I've got no movement at all in it when I'm moving the suspensions, which is fantastic. Very tight. I might have to, this arm is a little bit too close, so I'm going to have to just move one of these arms, bend one of these arms a tiny little bit. So now what we've got to do then is join this link rod here to our pedal. Where's our pedal? Where's our lever? Where's the lever? There. So then, so with our lever there, we've now got to join our lever to that. Okay, so I've cut down the foot peg a little bit, reamed out the middle, and I've bolted it in from this end now. Now this isn't particularly good practice, having a bolt this long on a foot peg, but you know, I don't know, if I stamped on it really hard, I reckon I'd probably bend the bolt. But we're going to see how it goes in, you know, see how if it's okay. Reason being is I really want to cap the end of this off, which is done quite nicely. Brake lever, I've just got bolted, just holding the brake lever up where it's going to sit naturally, somewhere around there. So all I've got to do now is join up these two pieces here. So I'm just going to swing a little bit underneath and join it to the lever, which is this, and the link rod, which is that. Okay. Okay, so I've finished one side, finished the brake side. Now then, not sure, I love it, I think it's great, but obviously it's hard to tell what it's going to look like, I think, because I've made them oversized, so I've made them a bit bigger than you would expect them to be. Okay, so when you look at it from a distance, yeah, they don't look too bad at all. I like them. I think though, realistically, I'm probably going to have to get the carburettor on there and an exhaust on there before I fully make up my mind whether they look right for the bike. But these are kind of how I had them in my head, although the linkage was a bit of a pain. So what have we done then? So we're going to leave these. I thought about knurling these and cutting some shapes into them and stuff, and I thought, nah, so let's just leave them nice and shiny, very soft. So I think we might have to have a go at anodizing these later on, but we're waiting until we've made all of the aluminium bits. That'll be a good video. Health and safety will love that one. But we'll do that when we've got no more aluminium bits to make. We'll do them all at the same time. Okay, so foot peg, brake lever, and what I wanted, I didn't want any linkage sort of. I didn't want anything distracting from the rear suspension really. That was what it was all about. And I think I might have done it. So all of the linkage, I've chucked all of the linkage underneath. Behind, you can see it behind, and it's quite a nice looking bit of linkage as well. So you don't notice it at first, and then you can see. You can see the mechanism. It's quite a nice mechanism it's got going on there as well. So it's done. It's done. Okay. Well, first of all, well done if you managed to watch all of that video. In my defence, I had over an hour that I had to edit down to as short as I could make it. But so, brake's done. It looks great. I'm so pleased with it. But the gear lever we've got to think about now. Gear lever, excuse all of these bits. We're selling again. Need some finances. Right. It's just coming up to Christmas, and I'm not getting a lot of time on the bike, so I'm going to post the video, the brake done, and not the gear lever. I'll just give you an idea of what's going to go on with the gear lever when I get a chance to get on with it. Gear lever. The usual way that people, when they put rear sits on, is they run the rod, kink the rod around the frame like so. I don't want to do it. I don't want it out the front. I want it behind. But it's a huge problem because there's no space. There's no space. So I'm going to think about it. And the next video will be me doing that. Probably running it around the front like I said, I just don't want to. But we'll see. We'll see. If I don't see you before, have a Merry Christmas.